we met yesterday. I'm Rachel. I am the Director of Content Services. And one of the things we wanted to do this year was take all the feedback you guys left, one, after the first conference, because everybody who came got an email asking what y'all thought, what you'd like to see differently. And then we sent out an additional survey asking the kind of topics that you guys wanted to hear more about. And one thing that was really cool was so many people wanted to learn more about working at the Hoth and the opportunities that exist for y'all here to move up. So these are the, I think, two of the most perfect people to learn more about. This is, well, they're gonna do their introductions, but we have April and Nat. And of course, Ben is the current blogger manager, so he'll be here to answer any in-house questions. We took the questions that you guys submitted, and I have those right here on these index cards. So I know we're a tech company.
High tech.
And then when there's time, what we'll do is, like yesterday, y'all can line up and ask questions. So I've already introduced myself. I'm gonna pass the mic to April. If you guys could just share a little bit about your background, when you started at the Hoth, and some of the hats maybe that you wear here now, what got you on this stage, I think that would be great.
Hi guys, I'm April Sutphin. I've been with the Hoth since April of 2017. Rachel actually brought me on as a writer. I quickly moved into QC. I did some topics, and then I've been fortunate enough to work with Monica on some special projects, the contributor program, outreach program, and some other things. I have my MFA in creative nonfiction. I live in New Jersey with my husband and my son, but we're actually looking to relocate to this area pretty soon. So, yeah. So who knows what's next?
I'm Nat Fitzgerald. I've probably QC'd most of your pieces. I have been working for the Hoth since May of 2017, so getting to be about 2 years here in a bit. I write, I QC, I am in the contributor program. I was on topics for a hot minute. I was on the video script team for a hot minute. Lots of hats, lots of stuff.
Great. Yeah, I'm Ben Schlesinger. I have been with the Hoth since March of 2017. Yeah, coming up on 2 years soon. I have an English degree from USF, and go Bulls. Go Bulls. And yeah, when I first started with the Hoth, I was in the trenches, much like many of you. I did QC, I did topics all day, every day for a bit, and then was fortunate enough to move on to some bigger roles in the in-house team.
Great. Yeah, oh, sorry, and that's Max working the crowd. You know him from the slides yesterday. He has been a Hother since December 14th, and he's a really good boy. He will probably try and jump on your lap. If you like dogs, you can let him. He's very sweet. But I guess he didn't want to be on the panel. He's a little shy. So let's jump into some questions. And again, these are the ones that y'all submitted. So, and these first few are kind of along a similar vein. And they're really about opportunities at the Hoth for freelancers. So I'm going to start with April. What are some of, as somebody who wears lots of hats at the Hoth, how do you divide your time between QC, topics, contributor program, blog writing? What are the ways that you divide your time amongst those positions?
I would say first, I think what I do is see where I'm needed most. So as you guys know, the queues fluctuate from time to time. So if the writing queue is booming, I'll probably focus a little bit more of my attention there. Also, a big part of it is just staying in communication with whoever is in charge of the specific jobs. They're pretty lenient, working with you, flexible as far as meeting your quotas. So I would just be like open and honest. Listen, I'm swamped in QC right now. Do you need me in topics? I did for a brief time do all three at once, but again, topics was booming at the time, so I spent most of my time there. At the time, Ben was running QC, and he was super understanding. And when I was doing all of that at once, I would try to just do like one day writing. I'd crush the writing queue, do what I had to do. The next day, I would earmark for QC. That way, at least for me, it takes me some time to get into a flow. It's very different QCing articles than creating topics. So rather than start and stop and break up, what I'm doing, that's what I would do. So one day was writing, one day was QC, one day was topics. And again, really just being honest about where you're at and finding out where they need you most, I would say, worked for me. Cool.
Ben, can you talk a little bit about the opportunities that exist for freelancers to get promoted at the Hoth?
Sure, yeah. So the biggest thing is standing out and doing great work. We, as many of you know, we do regular audits of all of our team members, and we actually have some bigger improvements to the system that are rolling out very soon that will be able to more easily identify the people that are really producing some of the best work. And then more opportunities, special projects. I talked a little bit about some of the new content products that we're working on in product development. Those things will be rolled out, and we'll be in contact with the best people on our team to execute those roles.
So Nat, as somebody who has done some special projects, what do you think got you those opportunities?
So you guys remember Catherine's advice yesterday to say no? I'm really bad at that. So basically a lot of it is just if there's been a need for a rush order or a need for maybe a client who's a little pickier and they're like, hey, we need somebody to take on this kind of asshole client, to give them really what they need is like, okay, yeah, sure, like I'll do that. And just like consistently stepping up. And then it's like, okay, now we got this over here. You've stepped up in the past. Like, can you do this here? I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll try it.
April, what do you think the Hoth looks for when promoting people?
Could I
sorry.
add to that? Yeah, really those projects, those special things, those rush orders. Camille and I will in the Slack, hey, anybody around to take on a topic on, right now or an article, and the ones, the individuals that are willing and able to volunteer then will continue to be contacted. Just ask Olivia and Gabe. They often will take on those special assignments and those special projects. And also being an expert in a specific area. Again, like Blogger Pro, but being very versatile, being able to write about finance or legal or any of these other more difficult niches. Those special assignments will go to the people that can really execute those the best. Again, Olivia does so much of that, and I'm so very grateful for her work. So I just wanted to add to that.
Hey, Olivia. So that does actually connect to this next question really well. So I'm going to direct it to April, but yeah, I apologize. If anybody has anything to add, definitely jump in. April, what do you think the Hoth looks for when promoting people or allowing them to move to other projects?
I think it has to do kind of with what Nat said, being versatile. I think it's really important to be a team player. As everyone here knows, the Hoth, there's tons of camaraderie. I think being willing to help others, Catherine had touched on the competitive nature, and I think that that's definitely a healthy element. Like, it keeps us all pushing ourselves a little bit harder. But also in the same turn, you see someone who's either struggling, has questions, needs help, not to view that as, a challenge, a negative thing, but to also offer your help and services to other people. But I also think not just volunteering for the sake of volunteering. I want to look good, so I'm going to take on a whole bunch of stuff that I can't handle. Not okay, Definitely be prepared to follow.
That's why I'm not on scripts anymore.
Be prepared to follow through with what you say you're going to do. I mean, like any other job, you need to perform, you need to work hard. I think being honest and transparent about your skills, if you need help, if you're not going to meet a deadline, trying to sweep things under the rug does not work. It will come back to bite you in the ass, so don't do it. I think just just all those things, being honest, being a hard worker, being focused, but definitely sticking to your word, doing what you say you're gonna do, giving 100%, but not being afraid to admit, hey, listen, I got something going on. I don't think I'm gonna be able to give you what I promised. That's the best thing you can do, than try to rush through it or do it half-ass and upset either, one of the supervisors or your client. So I would say that, be transparent.
All right, I have a hard-hitting question for Nat that came from the crowd. So, what is your technique for brewing the perfect cup of coffee?
We have a grinder that someone gave us to sell back when we were selling eBay stuff, and we just never did. And so we just gave them what would have been our sales commission. And so we we will grind some fresh grounds that day, boil a pot of water, do a French press over it.
Awesome.
You need to do a couple throughout the day, but it's worth it.
Cool. That did come from the crowd.
It was on the Google Doc. It really was.
So April is somebody who does a lot of just production, right? You're up there with Catherine and Patrick with how much you produce for the Hoth. How do you, after that perfect cup of coffee in the morning, motivate yourself to get started?
So for me, I start my day as one of those crazy people that gets up really early in the morning, and I hit the gym. For me, that's like my stress release. It gets me started. It's also a reason to take a shower and get dressed. So that's how I start my day. I have an 8-year-old son, so he forces me to get ready in the morning too. But for me, it's actually scheduling other things during my week to break it up. It forces me to focus when I need to focus, and it forces me to keep a schedule. So like Tuesdays and Thursdays, I volunteer at my son's school. I know that I'm going there. I know I need to be there at 11. So in my mind, okay, so I need to write 2 articles before I go. I'm there for half an hour, and then I'm gonna do this. So for me, motivation comes from actually kind of making a little bit of I don't wanna say a busy schedule, but doing it so that I have to work within certain parameters. Works for me because it's kind of like a time crunch, so to speak. So it's not like I have all day long. I can't procrastinate, which I'm good at when given the opportunity. So I would say for me, what works, what motivates me is actually scheduling other things to hold me accountable.
Nat, how do you write a lot of articles without sacrificing quality?
I think this is one of the things that I learned when I hopped on the QC team, because and honestly, before I was really surprised when the invitation to join QC came, because I felt like I wasn't doing a very good job. Because I was holding myself to the standard, not seeing anyone else's work, not seeing what anyone else was doing. I was just going like, I have to do, it's got to be like perfect, got to give like this whole thing. And then realizing that, and we do want to give great content, but at the same time, it's a commodity. Like, it's not like I'm not writing the great American novel, trying to condense that in 1,000 words. And so I joined the QC team, and I'm QCing all these articles that I'm saying like, it's good enough. And then realizing like, oh yeah, like I don't have to, I can do this. Like I can perform at this level. Like just taking that pressure off. And then my articles actually got better because I had way less pressure on myself. So just almost turning off the, I guess, artsy side of it, and then just turning it into a commodity, which is a little cold and sad, I know, but at the same time, yeah, it's, if you don't do that, then like that artsy side will get so burned out.
This connects to that as well, and I'll ask April, but open it up to Nat too. It's come up the past yesterday, right? How do you write a 1,500 word or 2,000 word article without adding fluff or padding that does go into depth and is useful?
I would say, my method is kind of what Josh actually touched on the other day, was making like an outline. So I'm also a big nerd, and I have a degree in history, so I love to research. So for me, if I hit a wall, let's say, I'm at 1,300 words or whatever, and I don't want this fluffy conclusion, there's got to be a different angle. There has to be something I didn't think of. So that's what I try to do. I try to look, different, I just research different things, but really just try to like think outside the box. You'd be surprised how many things you could come up with about about a topic. So yeah, get down like the basic, okay, I know I'm gonna include X, Y, and Z, this is important, whatever. But then if you do hit that wall, even at 1,500 words when you're shooting for 2,000 or when we're gonna be shooting for 4,000, I think it's really just thinking outside the box. What am I missing? I like Josh's suggestion to look up statistics or things like that, is a great jumping off point. And you'd be surprised how much you can build, how many words you can build around, one more tidbit of information. You could pull out 250 words like nothing. So I would just say that. Really try to take a different angle. Don't let that well, I've said everything I can say, you probably haven't. So yeah, that would be my suggestion.
My boy Ben Matthijs has a excellent tool that he uses, and that is the history of section that he adds before he starts. It works though, because if you especially are writing 1,500 words about the Volkswagen Atlas, you can't say all that much about the 2018 Volkswagen Atlas. So say a little bit about Volkswagen as a company there. Yeah. Pat it up. But one of the other things, because you think about, I have to write longer and longer and say more. Instead of trying to think of going longer into a subject, go deeper into it. And so there's something where a 500 word, you might say, the Volkswagen Atlas has airbags and anti-lock brakes and whatever. Write a section on each of those 3 points that you would have just said, which is still valuable content, but you just go deeper into it rather than just trying to bring up more things.
Yeah, that's great. So on that sort of line, how long does it take for you guys to write each 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, within, I know some topics are different than others, but.
No. I mean, just guess and I'll be flattered.
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, it's all about the topic. I mean, if 500 worders, I'd say, 25 minutes to get down everything, to just let it, if I'm in a groove, it all comes out. I know what I'm talking about. I have some little, knowledge stored from either past articles or whatever. Right. 500 words is pretty, easy at this point. Then the time to go back and edit or whatever. 1,000, I'd say 45 minutes to an hour. And anything over that is anybody's guess as far as what you're writing about. But I would say under an hour for, is pretty much what I shoot for. Right now, I'm not really writing too many long form pieces, but the 1,500 worders can take me a little bit longer. But I think if you can do 1,500, you can do 2,000, and those just take longer by But I'd say under an hour is a good thing to shoot for, in my opinion.
I mean, it depends on the groove. So, if it's a churning through the mud, unmotivated day. 1,000, an hour and a half for 1,000 words. I try to keep it under that, but then at that, try to do that. But it again, it's just based on the topic and the workflow I've already built up. So I've done a 500 and a 1,500 in an hour and a half before. Yeah. So it's just because it was some really good topics.
So Catherine yesterday mentioned that she writes about 8 articles a day. You guys can feel free to share how many you write. But a lot of the questions that we got were basically, how do you keep going back and keep writing without getting burnt out?
Take a break.
Yeah.
Take a break in between. I break it up with QC a lot, and so I will generally. I start with QC actually because it's an easier ramp up. So I'll ramp up with maybe 5 QCs, write an article, and then do another 5, and then just keep going back and forth throughout the day.
I would say also the projects that I'm working on right now, the topics vary, and I know ahead of time what they are. So sometimes what I'll do is tackle the harder ones first. Gives me kind of something to look forward to.
Eat the frog.
Yeah, I know by article 4 I'm writing about something fun, and that kind of motivates me to keep going. But also too, like I said earlier, just knowing that I have other things scheduled, it's a good motivator to just, let me just get this shit done so I can move on to what I'm doing. So, if I'm banging my head against the wall, just like Catherine said and Nat said, what should take me an hour might take me 3 hours. And then it's what's the point, So you just have to know yourself. You have to know, what, today I need a break, but that means tomorrow I'm going to have to work doubly hard. and you just accept it and move on. So I would say for me, though, one thing that does work is, especially when I was working on my personal blog, was to leave that for the end of the day. It was kind of like a little bit of a fun project that I knew was the light at the end for me.
Well, I start my personal blog at the first of the day, so it's a better momentum.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that. Just identifying when and where you do your best work, and then really plugging into that task. I know many of us could all have. I have 1,000 windows open on my web browser at all times, yeah, just really thinking critically about your workflow and finding what works best for you, I think.
And that's really important because there are times where I'm like, oh, I can write and watch The Office. I've seen every episode several times. But then, you know how many episodes of The Office it takes to write a 500-word essay? It once took me 7. So be real honest about yourself. I was like, I should just turn off this. Oh, but this next episode is great.
So we had a question that was directed specifically at April. Yeah, and it was Max just returned and has my index cards. But basically, yeah, it was, April has a husband. She's an 8-year-old that she's mentioned, and some of our biggest distractions can be our families or things that are going on at home. So what do you do to kind of stay plugged in when there's so much going on around you?
So I'm fortunate to the fact that my son is in school full time. So that's kind of, obviously I work mostly while he's in school. So that right there, it kind of forces me to choose a schedule. I try not to pull out my computer once he's home. So again, that's a motivator for me to keep going. My husband, unfortunately, works a lot. So he's really not home even on the weekends and stuff, though I try not to work on the weekends. Sometimes it happens. I am guilty of sometimes looking to the electronic babysitter. There may be times he's on Xbox or PS4, if I'm trying to get something done. But I would also say, too, I know that Courtney, too, has young children at home. So if you do have children that are smaller, that are home with you, if able, I would say elicit the help of family and friends. I'm very fortunate. My mom and I are very close. She's always willing to jump in if I need a hand. I know Courtney's parents are very involved as well. I would say that. I would also, too, if you do have either a partner who's more involved or, just ask them to respect your time, the fact that, and I say to my son, he knows that, even though mommy's home, I'm working. Like, he understands that I'm working. So I would say that, just try to, explain to them. And also, too, if it takes it, leave the house, if you can, if he's with, your kids or with your partner or, even a babysitter at times if you need to, and go out, just, do what's going to help you keep your sanity. I also have an office. So sometimes if it is the weekend, I'm working on a special project, I need to get something done, sitting at my dining room table, while my son's playing Xbox doesn't really work. So I'll, he's old enough. So I'll just say, mommy's going to go in the other room if you need me, whatever. So I am fortunate in that respect, that he's, old enough to kind of be a little self-reliant. But I would say if you have smaller children, don't be afraid to ask for help. I do know that Courtney's method is to work at night after her children go to bed. So that's another option. If you have real little ones, 8 o'clock's bedtime, that gives you several hours to work. And then, if you have a real little one, well, they nap during the day. Maybe that's a good time to hop on real quick or take a nap yourself if you've been up till 4 o'clock in the morning writing. So yeah, I would say, but don't be afraid to ask for help, and try to, don't feel guilty. Like your work is important. You're doing something for yourself, for your family, and hopefully your partner and other important people in your life are willing to help and they understand that.
Yeah. So this sort of leads into, and Catherine touched on this yesterday, but how do you guys sort of divide your weeks, your days? Do you do the 9 to 5? Do you take weekends off? Do you do holidays? What do you recommend as a schedule to succeed here? You guys can both.
Yeah. Personally, I work a few hours at my church as well, and so like Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, I'm all at the church doing office hours or whatever. And so, which is great because try to find a job that will work around that. So I will generally do a little work after I get home from, on Tuesday mornings. I'll do work after that. Then Wednesdays I'm just through the day. My wife runs her own business, and so I generally just work while she's at work, or work at her work with her. And then I do so Wednesday, Friday, and then a little Saturday. I'll work on that and generally touch on stuff on Sunday afternoon, and then Thursday mornings and whatever else I can fit in.
And I pretty much strictly hold the Monday through Friday. Not quite the 9 to 5, but my son's off to school by 7:30, so I go home and I just kind of buckle down. If I know I have things planned, lunch with a friend or something like that, or I have things going on Friday or on the weekend, I'll try to get my stuff done, Monday through Thursday. And then by like 3, so I pretty much work through the day. If I do take that break to go volunteer at a school, I'll come back home and just kind of, or sometimes I go to Panera, because I am also victim to putting on something on TV that is distracting. So sometimes I'll go to the library or somewhere else where I can't, you got to just know yourself, and I know myself, and sometimes I don't have willpower when it comes to that. So I just try to, also, I will say when I'm doing either QC or topics, for myself, topics I can do while doing other things. Like if my son is home, because for me, it's not as much of a flow. Like my thoughts aren't I'm searching, I'm doing research, I'm looking up keywords. That's easier for me. So if I know I have that kind of work ahead, I'll save that for a time where either, if my son's home for school or, later in the afternoon, in case I don't get to it while I'm alone, I know I can finish it with other distractions. So I would say breaking up your workload, knowing how you work best also helps.
I'll also say, because a lot, like the perk of like the freelance thing is like being able to set your own schedule, and you're like, oh, this is great. Like I can like catch up with friends, like go out for lunch and like have with. If you don't set your own schedule though, if you're just like, oh yeah, I can work whenever I want to, you won't want to actually, and then you'll be like, oh, I've spent all my time hanging out with people, and now it's payday, and I've made $56. So, like, as much as tempting as it is to be like work the Hoth around the rest of your life, like you have to like actually grind it. You do have to. So like it's all nice to be your own boss, but like if you're not a strict boss, like you have to be an asshole boss every once in a while to yourself, or else you're just not going to get anything done.
Do you guys Hoth full time? Yes. Both of you?
I'm aside from the church thing, which is only for like 15 hours a week, but this is my only other revenue stream.
We had some questions about transitioning to Hothing full time. Well, yeah, we do, but that's pretty honest. We had some tips from people asking about Hothing full time and what you guys recommend and what that transition looked like. Can you touch on that real quick?
Yeah, Catherine mentioned like make sure your finances are in a state where you can do that. I did not do that. I was working in a factory and just said I just need to get the hell out of here. So I did take, I think, a week to make sure that it worked. And then after that, I just jumped out and had to do it, and was already immediately making more than I was making at the factory anyway.
Yes.
Mind you, this is the factory job I took after Ben told me about the Hoth, because I was like, I've written freelance before and it sucks. No, it's just the agency sucked. The other agency sucked. You guys are fine. You guys are great. I'm here on a panel. But I mean, so there's that. But also, do a little bit of a test run. Make sure that your finances, like not in terms of like savings and stuff, but make sure like the bills you have to pay, like calculate all that. Make a budget, like an actual budget. My wife and I just went through like the whole Dave Ramsey thing. And it's hokey and annoying, but like a zero-based balance budget where like you send every dollar somewhere and you know what your expenses are, and you like cut down all the other crap that you're spending money on. It'll actually, like, if your expenses are less, it'll be a lot easier to work full time for doing freelance, because you don't have to pay for as much. So,
I would probably say the same thing. I had a full-time job before, and I started freelancing for the Hoth, and I was actually doing both. And then I just realized how much I loved it here and what the opportunities available. So I did. It happened to be at a time where I had a little bit of a nest egg, so that might be a good idea if you're able to put a little money aside, so that way when the dry spells hit, you have a little bit of a a safety net. I would say that for sure. And then too, I know the Hoth is always big on freelancers using this as a platform for other things. So, I love the Hoth. I have a couple of other smaller, freelance gigs. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. Keep your, your mind open to other freelance opportunities. Once you know your deadlines for the Hoth, obviously, as long as you're meeting your quotas and you're doing what you need to do and you're performing, doesn't mean that you can't expand your horizon. So, I would say keep that, open. Obviously, budget, understand what your bills are, how much you're capable of making. But yeah, so test run, always a good idea. Maybe put aside a little money if you can, and just keep your options open, I would say.
Nat, how do you manage your taxes?
So last year, if you guys were here, there was a big long thing about like setting aside 30% and all that. And my wife and I have been self-employed or freelancing for the last 5 years. And if you don't do that, like all the advice they try to tell you, that's okay because we don't either. Just every year we file our taxes and the IRS is like, okay, so this is how much you owe. And we say, great, can we make a payment plan? And so we'll just, we're making payments each month for the year previously, which makes it a lot more manageable and a lot less anxiety inducing. And last year we actually made money back, so.
Woo!
First time in 5 years.
I do know some other freelancers too, which I didn't do last year, but I plan on doing this year, is every time you get paid, just put aside 20% or something, I also know a couple other freelancers doing different work than writing, but there's actually a form, I don't know much about this, but that you can actually fill out, or you go online to the IRS and you can actually make quarterly payments on your own. Figure out how much you're gonna make and get ahead of the game, send them, and that way the penalty fees, from what I understand, for not paying quarterly for freelancers aren't terrible. I don't know, but I'll let you know because I'm gonna find out soon. Okay, good to know.
I'm not sure they exist.
Okay, all right, even better. Okay, all right, perfect. So, but yeah, some people just don't want that hanging over their head. So if you want to be proactive, you can set aside some money, or you can send payments ahead of time. So that's just another option.
And talk to like a specialist that knows taxes, please, because I'm not an accountant. Rachel's not an accountant. Are you an accountant? No, I don't think so. So yeah,
I'm actually an accountant, so no.
So yeah, contact a tax specialist, and and find cheaper, free resources to find out all the information that you need.
How do you guys get other freelance gigs, and do you use your Hoth work as part of that portfolio?
It's absolutely part of that portfolio. I don't do a ton of freelancing outside of this. Because it's not nearly as reliable and it's way more frustrating. Yeah. It's like, hey, I wrote this article for you like 3 months ago. I'm like, oh, interesting. But we talked about this. A lot of it has come through actually just networking with small business owners and talking with them about different things. There was someone who she was starting her own digital marketing company and was trying to build up her wife is a real estate agent and was trying to build up content for her blog. And I was like, well, I do that. And she's like, oh, okay. And so I wrote a few articles for them. But it's all come from just, talking with other business owners, just networking. And then because people are like, oh, yes, I keep hearing about how I need a blog, but I don't want to do it. But I can pay you to do it. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. 3 months later, they'll pay for it.
I would say, too, some of the work that I was doing with the contributor program and the outreach program, maybe the deal that I was trying to strike for the Hoth didn't work out, but I had a couple of mommy blogs be like, you know what, but we could use your content if you want to put a different spin on it. and we'll throw you some money. So I was actually fortunate enough to just pick up a couple of jobs stemming from this. And yeah, I usually just say, I've ghostwritten a couple things. Here's a couple things I've written. So yeah, I definitely use some of my work from the Hoth for that. And I'd also say, kind of piggybacking on what Nat said, there's tons of, startup businesses out there, small blogs that are just looking for content. Because one of the biggest things about getting your DA up and all that is content. And they either don't have time, resources, whatever. So I definitely found, gearing my attention toward the smaller, websites and stuff, though they may not pay as much or not be able to. If you have a whole bunch of them and the writing's pretty easy or it's a topic you like, it might be worth your while. So
I definitely want to have some time for questions from y'all. So I'm going to do one more, and this says if it applies. So that's actually what somebody said. But where do you guys see yourself after the Hoth, if that's applicable? What are you moving towards? And that's for everyone. Or you could say you're never leaving.
I mean, yeah. So my wife runs a makerspace in town, and it'd be really nice to like have that get to a point where it's paying all the bills. Because that's really the remarkable thing is like I have been the primary, because she just started paying herself like maybe 6 months ago for this business that we started 4 years ago. But like, so I've been the primary breadwinner for that through the Hoth, which is great. But if that takes off and we don't need to do that, I mean, it'd be nice. I'll just hang around in Slack and just like share memes and stuff. But I mean, yeah. I don't have any like exit strategies, mind you.
And I would probably say the same. I'm super happy here. I mean, when we moved down to Florida, I mean, I don't know, maybe spend some more time in the office. We'll see.
Office.
Yes, I'm sorry, the office. So yeah, that's always in the back of my mind, just because I love this group of people and I love what they do and I love the atmosphere. So I'm always thinking about that. And then I don't know. I love the writing. I have to say, like the first time someone asked me what do you do for a living, and I was able to say I'm a writer. Like that felt pretty kick-ass, I gotta say. So I don't really want to give that up. But I don't know. I mean, I've flirted with the idea of maybe just getting like another little job. We might need medical benefits at some point. So, it's really where life demands might come into play. But I don't plan on going anywhere unless, as long as you'll have me.
Forever. Okay, cool. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't have any exit strategies yet either myself. Yeah, I love, this is the best job I've ever had. This is a career, and I feel very blessed to be in the position that I'm in. Yeah, I'm getting into some new spaces at the Hoth, which I'm really excited about, and I'm not going anywhere.
Yay. Oh, me, I'm here.
She's not
until
going anywhere. You can't.
I actually live at the office.
She's got a
as you can
cot.
see, my dog is here. Look, he's doing it. So this is, and Max being here is actually really similar to, because we have a dog-friendly office. So there's usually between 2 and like 6 dogs running around.
Yeah.
So we brought the office to the conference. Hi, Max. So we have 11 minutes, which is perfect. Again, let's line up at the mic, and you guys feel free. We're very transparent here. Ask whatever you want, and you can either direct them to somebody on stage or to the crowd.
So,
yeah.
Y'all don't realize my seat was strategic. So my question, and it's more for the in-house team, is kind of what challenges do you see the Hoth facing right now? Yeah. And what are some ways that as freelancers we can come together as a team and help overcome those and help you grow beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, so the Hoth in general began as a strictly an SEO company, right? So Hoth Blogger was actually the first content product that we offer. So one of the challenges that we're facing as a whole is actually a really great opportunity for everybody in this room. Because when links, back in the day, links were the thing. We're moving away from that. And now all everybody wants is content.
Content.
So I know that kind of sounds like but this is what we as a leadership team have been talking about this past year is how do we expand our content offerings, because that's where this business is moving. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to make this conference all about content, because we know that that's the future of the Hoth.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So I know that a lot of people either want to do freelance or already do, like outside of the Hoth. So there's a lot of moving parts for us to do the work that we do. There's, we have to pay the marketers, we have to pay topics, we have the writers, we have the QC. So for somebody who wants to do writing for other blogs and other companies, what do you guys charge them? Like, because we know how much we make as writers,
Right.
but there's so many more people that get paid. I don't want to charge somebody, all right, $30,
Yeah. No. So I did some research onto the topic, and when I started doing it, and it said like starting out like 6 cents a word is probably a good guideline before you get your client base built up. 10 cents a word is sort of like the sweet spot, like for like a successful sort of thing. So I was doing 6 cents a word for a first bit, because you have to remember when you're writing for the Hoth. I mean, like you said, there's all that work that other people are doing. So like someone else is doing all of your topic research, someone else is doing all the keyword research, someone else is QCing it when you are writing it, and someone else is doing the sales and payroll. Like when you are freelancing on a one-to-one basis with somebody, you're doing all that. So you got to get yourself paid for all those things. Yeah, just take all that into account, like, because it'll take you 45 minutes to write 1,000 words on this topic, but how long is it going to take you to track the client down, find the client, do your research, do all your edits, all the time you spend back and forth emailing with the client, all that stuff has to be on your payroll now. So you have to make sure that you're getting paid enough through that.
But I would also say too, just real quick, don't undersell yourself either.
No.
Don't be like, because you sounded as if like you felt guilty saying, $30. Like, don't feel guilty. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you know you're worth it, if you know this topic, if it's one of your niches, don't be afraid to ask for what you think you deserve. And you'd be very surprised. Some people will be like, well, I'll give you, $15. And, when you're done with the conversation, you might be up to 50. So don't be afraid to play a little hardball.
Okay. I think this was mainly when you were saying about QC. Once you're able to see in QC how other writers were doing it, if we wanted to say change up our style, because I know that there's the audit and everything. If we wanted to change up our style, because you know how we kind of, I don't know about everyone else, but you kind of get in a headspace of like, this is how it needs to go. But then you're almost like afraid that if you go off a little bit,
Like off your format?
yeah,
you mean?
QC's gonna come down on you, and then with the audit and everything, it's like, oh yeah, your quality went down. Would there be a way that we can kind of maybe make a note saying that we're trying some things, like a experimental sort of?
Yes.
And that's all.
No, I just feel like even if you change your personal format up a little bit, like good content is good content.
Yeah.
So as long as it's within the guidelines, go for it. Yeah. I mean, don't make like a surrealist poem about the topic. Or do, I'd love to read it.
My question is for Nat, and it's about taxes again. So, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but last year I had 2 Schedule Cs, and this year I'm fixing to have 3. And I'm wondering do you file a separate Schedule C for the church and the Hoth and the makerspace?
Yeah. Well, we file jointly, which helps my tax burden a lot because the shop isn't making as much profit to raise that tax burden up. And so I'm benefiting from a lot of those tax credits, write-offs, and whatever else. But yeah, it's all in one filing, but it's all separate.
So is there an advantage to doing some kind of LLC or something and being one company that outsources and making those separate clients instead of separate like businesses.
If you like you're talking for your freelancing stuff, if you would do that, it would, even though it's an LLC, it would still be a sole proprietorship, which is taxed the same way as an individual. It's filed
But
the
I
same
would
way
only
as an
file
individual.
one Schedule C. And if this is too detailed, it doesn't.
You can do that right now.
Yeah, you can even do that
You
as an
don't need a
individual.
Schedule C for every client. You just need your freelancing business to have a Schedule C.
Yeah.
That's it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If you have other businesses, like you're a designer or something like that, is that why you have different?
So one of them, they could all be considered like office work. So if I was outsourcing office work,
Sure.
you know, so I could file them separately. I could file them together. Are there advantages either way? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't think so, though.
talk to an accountant.
I think income is income, as far as the filings is concerned.
Income and your write-offs are your write-offs. It's
Yeah.
all in the same bucket. But I would talk to an accountant.
Yeah.
Hi guys.
My question was in regards to, because we write kind of, some of the writing is more technical,
Yeah.
and some of the writing is just like, you know, I wrote a 2,000 word piece on taking a selfie. So, and how to style your
Just
hair
go
in a Santa
deeper.
hat. Yeah.
Just write deeper.
No, I can find some things to write about. That's not a
The
problem.
history of selfies.
Yes. So, how to find the right lighting.
Right.
But my question is more so as far as format. Sometimes we write maybe informally, and so I was wondering how you guys feel, and maybe this is a question for Ben and Rachel. How do you guys feel like about incomplete sentences or sentences that start with and or but? Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, to me, yeah. Internet writing is not Faulkner, right? Like, we're not writing research papers. We're writing things that are viewed on a screen. And the best way for that stuff to be communicated is it's conversational.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So-
100%. That's why we have that Hemingway thing that I think probably is the bane of some people in your existence. But 8th grade reading level or below, conversational.
Okay.
What Josh was saying yesterday, no weasel words, no jargon, get to the point, and talk like you're talking to a friend.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, informal, conversational is always better. We're not writing research papers or term papers.
Okay, so
And because that's how people talk.
so my question is, I have apparently an obsession with commas in my writing, and so is there tricks that anybody has that they use to kind of cut that down to make their sentences simpler? Because I run into that all the time, especially in the Hemingway app.
More smaller sentences.
Well, I mean, I know.
Yeah.
But is there a trick that you use to force yourself to do that?
If Hemingway's like, hey, all this is red, I go, okay, fine, Hemingway. And I make them not red.
I would also say too, if you find that the commas are breaking up either like ideas or like Nat might use the car example, like, oh, it has great airbags, comma, brakes, comma, you know, take each one of those thoughts and make it its own sentence. You know, it'll be a lot shorter, more concise, more informative. So if those are the kinds of commas you're struggling with, like run on lists of things, I would say just try to break it up, maybe give each one its own space, and that'll add to your word count too.
We have time for one more question, I think, if somebody has.
Also, keep in mind that Grammarly is not the gospel. It's gonna help, but I mean, Grammarly will sometimes be like, "Hey, this stylistic choice is not good," but like, no, this is debatable. I'll do it. Except for an Oxford comma, I'll fight all y'all over an Oxford comma. I add them as I QC.
And one more question? Yeah?
Are there plans in the future to make a more mobile-friendly portal that we would be able to write on the go?
Jesse conveniently left the room. So Colleen asked if there were plans to make a more mobile-friendly portal. Yeah, I mean, we're always trying to create And one of the things that's really cool about the Hoth is we're always trying to improve the user experience for our clients, obviously, but also for you guys, because we know that like you are the backbone of what we're creating. Can I give you a date? Can I give you a cue? No. And we have Hoth Blogger is one of, how many products do we have? I don't even know. A million. No. Like we have a lot of products actually in our suite. Hoth Blogger is our favorite, but we also have to remember that time needs to be divided. Oh, hi Jesse.
Hey.
We had a question about if there's plans to make the portal more mobile friendly.
Ha.
She's like, I'm just trying to run this event. Send me an email. Yeah.
Really cute, right?
Yeah.
I'll think about it. A lot of it's my very long dev list.
But we do, and everybody here is in the Slack channel now, right? So there is a channel to request dev updates. We do read it and listen to it. Go ahead and use it, and we'll send those over. But yeah.
Yeah.
Dev requests.
Dev
And that's
requests.
like, right.
He knows it. I mean,
You have to add a picture of Dev Patel to make sure that she sees it.
we're constantly looking for ways that we can improve, like Rachel said, and I had this conversation last night. If you have ideas, give them to us. We will take them and use them to improve our systems and processes. Many of the ideas that you see now, that you interact with now, come from you all in the first place. So that's really incredible stuff. And think about those pain points that you have in your workflow, and if it's something about our system, let us know, and we could see if there's something that we can change or update to make it better for you.